Well, now I'm stuck. Hi. I don't know what I was thinking. Ow. Aw, I just got lip gloss on my book. Okay, I don't know what I thought I was gonna do with this, but these are about to fall. I got lip gloss on my book. Hi guys. A couple days ago, I filmed an updated version of every single book on my physical TBR, and if you saw that, then you know I have a lot of books. I've got almost 130 unread books, and in 2024, I want to really prioritize reading my physical TBR. So I decided for my 24 books to read in 2024 to pull only from that list. And then I have a few honorable mentions, which are books I don't own, but I do really want to read this year. And then I have a couple of new releases that I'm excited for. I think this is going to be long, so we should just get right into it. I want to start with the series I'm in the middle of that I want to prioritize. If you saw what I have on my physical TBR, then you know I have a lot of series, whether I have started them or not started them. And I really want to prioritize series this year. So I only have two that I'm in the middle of to talk about, and then a lot that I want to start. First book is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is, of course, book 2 after Fourth Wing. I really loved Fourth Wing. I gave it 5 stars, and I finished it and didn't feel like I immediately wanted to go into this one. So I want to get to it before I forget what happened in Fourth Wing, but it's not something I need to read right away. The size is intimidating me because she's quite a bit thicker than Fourth Wing was, but I want to get it done in the next few months. I've heard very mixed reviews on this. Some people were very disappointed on this, and then other people think it was just as good or better than the first book. Fourth Wing blew up on TikTok, so I'm sure everybody that's watching knows what this book is about, but if you don't, it's basically just a fantasy about a war college with dragons. The other series I'm in the middle of is ACOTAR. I finished the first one a couple of weeks ago, and I would love to continue and finish the whole series in 2024. The second one is A Court of Mist and Fury, and I know that this is so many people's favorite in the series, so I'm excited to see if I love it. I didn't love ACOTAR, but I enjoyed it. I think I gave it a 3.5 stars, and same with Fourth Wing. I didn't read it and feel like I immediately wanted to continue the series, so I'm not dying to pick it up, but I do have a lot of books in the Sarah J. Maas universe that I would like to read. Ideally, I would love to finish this series and then start Throne of Glass this year, so I should probably start this in January or February if I want to get all that done. Now on to series that I want to start. We have a ton, mostly fantasy, sci-fi, romance, everything. First one is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I have had this book for a year now, so I'm upset that I haven't read it yet. This is a young adult fantasy. I think there are 2 books out right now. I don't know much about it other than she is a student. I don't know if she's in high school or college, and there's magic involved. Next, we've got City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments. Yes, book 1 in the Mortal Instruments, which is a part of the Shadowhunters universe as a whole. I think there's 3 series in there. I read the first 3 Mortal Instruments books when I was in middle school, and I remember really loving them. And I know she has so many other books in the Shadowhunters universe. People adore them. My friend Mick has been begging me to start the series, and I'm just intrigued. I think the only thing that's been holding me back is the fact that there's so many books. I think there's like 15 in the whole Shadowhunters realm, but it's finally time for me to start it. And like I said, I read this in middle school, so it can't be hard to get into. And it's a little bit thicker, but honestly the font is really big, and I think I'm just gonna fly through this once I actually get into it, and I'm actually very excited. In this world, humans can't see demons, vampires, werewolves, all those sorts of creatures. But Shadowhunters, I don't remember if they're human or what, but they can see them, and they are like, their whole purpose is to kill them. Our main character, Clary, I think she is a human, or she like grew up with humans. She doesn't know what Shadowhunters are, but one day she starts seeing the demons and stuff, so she just gets like wrapped up into this world. That's all I remember, other than one plot twist that I think happens at the end of this book that I don't remember what the purpose of that was, but it's very strange. But anyways, I'm very excited to get back into this. I don't know how many realistically I'm going to read of this series, but I at least want to get the first one done. The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. This is the first book in the Remnant Chronicles, which comes before the Dance of Thieves duology. Both series are fantasy romance, and Dance of Thieves, I would say, is much more popular. People love that series, but this one, you don't have to read it before, but it's like Shadow and Bone, Caraval, all of those, where if you read this first, you're just gonna have a better understanding of the world, and it's gonna be easier to go into Dance of Thieves. I'm the type of person that absolutely cannot skip the book or the series that comes before. So once I figured that out, I had to get this one. And I've also just heard that this trilogy is amazing. It's young adult, and all I know about the plot is that she's a princess that is supposed to marry this man, and for whatever reason, she doesn't want to marry him, and she escapes. She runs away, and then I think the guy she was supposed to marry and then a bounty hunter are both chasing after her. I don't know what happens after that, but I've heard really amazing things, and I would love to finish this series so that I can also read Dance of Thieves. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a sci-fi series that has been everywhere recently. It feels like so many people are reading this and everyone seems to be loving it. I've heard it described as Hunger Games in space. Other than that, I really don't know anything about the plot. Besides that there is some sort of hierarchy in society, like people have different colors. I think there's golds, reds, I don't know what else. That is, I think, a big part of it. And then they're also going into space. I'm not really sure. I have heard that this is a series that takes just a little bit more brain power. Like you have to pay attention. It's a little bit complex, but I'm really looking forward to it. And it is one of the shorter books I have, so I'm not quite as intimidated to start this one. The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. This is another young adult fantasy series. This takes place in some sort of high security prison. Our main character, Kiva, is the prison healer. So she's in there for some reason, but then she has just taken on the role of being a doctor, I guess. And there's some sort of rebellion going on, and the rebel queen gets sent into that prison. And I guess there's some sort of trial thing that the rebel queen is supposed to participate in, but she's sick. And Kiva, as the prison healer, offers to take her place in the trials. Sarah Caroli read this recently, and I feel like she is the reason that a lot of people have been reading it. I've heard it's really good. I've heard it's got a lot of good plot twists, and I just love a young adult fantasy. You'll probably find a lot of those in here. Next, we've got one of my biggest priorities, which is Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This series is everywhere. I feel like it is so many people's just absolute favorite series, but a lot of people also hate it. It's very polarizing because this follows BJ and Magnolia, who are just a very toxic couple. Everybody says that this is like British Gossip Girl, so I'm imagining a bunch of rich, spoiled kids and their drama, and I'm very excited for it. I love the show Gossip Girl, so I'm hoping that I enjoy this. Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I know I mentioned this earlier because this is the first book in the trilogy that comes before Six of Crows. I feel like this series has a bad rep. People do not like it, and I got a lot of comments on my physical TBR video that it's just very YA and not as good as Six of Crows, but that a lot of people still enjoy it. I'm honestly not that hard to please. As long as I'm enjoying a book, then that's all I really want. So I'm hoping that I like this, but most importantly, I just want to get started in the Grisha-verse, which is where I think most of Leigh Bardugo's books take place. And this is where you're supposed to start. So I might not really be excited for the actual plot of this book, but I'm just excited at the idea of getting into Leigh Bardugo. This one is about Alina, who's a soldier, and there's something called a shadow fold where there's all these monsters and things. And for some reason, the army thinks that she can defeat the shadow fold, I think. Yeah, they think that she can summon a force capable of destroying the shadow fold. So I'm assuming she has some sort of magic abilities or something like that, but that's all I know. Next, I've got The Hobbit, which honestly, I don't know much about J.R. Tolkien's books and what the order or anything is. I believe that it is a prequel to the Lord of the Rings series. I don't know if you have to read this. I've heard that they're kind of separate, but on here it says it's the enchanting prelude to the Lord of the Rings, so I'm not really sure. All I know is that I would love to get into his books, and I've just heard so many people's all-time favorite book is The Hobbit, so I want to give it a try. I've had this on my shelf for a while, and it's one of those just classic books, so I want to challenge myself to read it next year. Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This is another young adult book. I've got a lot of young adult series. This is a sci-fi. I always thought it was a fantasy, but everyone says it's a sci-fi. There are two girls on TikTok that convinced me to buy this. They say that this is like the show The Boys, where there's superheroes, but they're actually really corrupt and like horrible people. They said that this is just like a young adult appropriate version of that. And I love that show. I think that is such an interesting concept, and I've heard so many other people love this series. Next is A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. I have a few of her books, and I haven't read anything by her yet, and I really want to dive into her writing this year. This is the only series I have from her, and it sounds really interesting. It takes place in London, and I think there are 3 different versions of London. There's white, red, and black London, and they're kind of like alternate universes. And there's one guy, Kel, Yes, Kel is our main character, and he is one of the very few people that can go between the different versions of London. It's kind of like time traveling, I think, except that they're just different realities. I've had it for 6 months now, and I've just been scared to start a new series because the books are a little bit thick, but I'm finally going to get over that fear and start it. It sounds like it might be a little bit confusing, but also really fun. Next is These Violent Delights by Rachel... I was about to say by Rachel Catherine, by Chloe Gong, but I know that Rachel Catherine really loves her books. She is really the reason that I picked this up. I bought this very recently, actually. It's one of the few books that I haven't had sitting on my shelves for at least like a few months. This is part of her Shanghai something series. I don't know what the name is, but it's a few different series that are connected, like a few duologies or a trilogy and a duology. I don't really remember. It takes place obviously in Shanghai, and there's a bunch of gangs, and I think it's fantasy, so I assume there's some sort of magical element or something, and I just really want to get into Chloe Gong's books because I've heard nothing but really great things. Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, which is a cowboy romance series. This is actually supposed to be my book club's next book, but we don't know when we're gonna read it, so probably in January, but I'm not sure. Everyone seems to love this series. I've never read a cowboy romance, and I have a lot of contemporary romances that have just been sitting on my shelves for a while, and this is one of the ones that I want to prioritize. I think that is the end of series that I want to start, so the rest should just be standalones. First is Crying in H Mart by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a memoir, and I have had this book for a really long time, and I need to read it. Honestly, I had no idea who Gabrielle... Did I say this was from Gabrielle Zevin? If I did, no, this is from Michelle Zauner. Honestly, I had no idea who Michelle Zauner was, but now I know that she's a singer and she goes by Japanese Breakfast. Normally, I don't think I would just pick up a memoir about somebody I don't know, but I've heard nothing but amazing things. I think that this handles grief and other things that happen in her life, and it's just supposed to be amazing. I have wanted to read it for over a year, and I've only read one memoir so far, and I really enjoyed it, so I don't know why I haven't just picked this up. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This is a super popular book. I think it was like a Barnes & Noble book of the year. It was one of the Goodreads Choice books last year, and it's still really popular now, but I feel like most people maybe have already read it. This is a general fiction that follows two friends while they create a video game together, and I think it just spans from their early adulthood, like throughout the rest of their lives, maybe. I've heard that this is sad, but really amazing. I've heard nothing but good things about Gabrielle Zevin's writing, and I've had this on my shelves for a long time. So it's another that I just want to get off my TBR, and I think it deserves to be read. I only haven't picked it up because I honestly put off books that I think are gonna be really good, and I'm trying not to do that anymore. One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. This is kind of a random pick, but not really. I decided I wanted to put one book by Olivia Blake on this list, and this is just the one I think that I'm most intrigued by. I have this one, The Atlas Six, Master of Death, and maybe another one. And I haven't read anything by her. So there's obviously something that intrigues me about her books, but I just haven't picked them up yet. This one is like a modern day witchy retelling of Romeo and Juliet. I've heard her writing is beautiful and it sounds very interesting. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, again by V.E. Schwab. This I think I talked about in my TBR video with my mom. I don't know what it is about this book, but I feel like it has the potential to become my favorite book of all time. It's about this girl who makes a deal with the devil to stay alive forever, but the catch is that nobody will ever remember her. So she could spend all day with somebody, have the best day ever, and then turn around the next day and they would have no idea who she is. I have put it off because it's kind of a long book, and I've heard a lot of people think it's very slow, and then other people think it's amazing. As long as I enjoy her writing, I don't think I'm going to be bothered by the slowness of it. I kind of like slice of life type books. I really don't know what it is about it, but I just think I'm going to love this. I have two books by Taylor Jenkins Reid on my TBR, and I was debating between the two of them. I have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo and then Carrie Soto Is Back. I really loved the two books that I've read by her, so I want to get to probably both of these this year, but I wanted to pick just one to put on this list, and I decided on Carrie Soto Is Back. Mainly because this is one of my friend Mick's favorite 5-star reads, and she's been begging me to read it. And I also got a couple comments saying that I have to read this. This is about Carrie Soto, who is this famous tennis player. In my head, she's Serena Williams. She's the best of the best. And then I think she retires, but then this new younger person comes in and she is threatening to like take over her title. So she comes out of retirement to beat her, I think. Next we have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This was really popular this fall. It is a contemporary romance with magical realism. It is about this girl who inherits her late aunt's apartment, and her aunt always told her that it has magic, that it sometimes slips 7 years into the past, and I'm assuming she didn't really believe her. But one day she comes home to her apartment and it's not her apartment. It is 7 years in the past and there's this man living there. I do not know how the two of them work this out, but the romance is between the two of them, and I've heard it is just so good. Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This actually might be part of a series, so maybe I should have included it in the first part. I don't know if it has a name, but I think that this one and Yours Truly are kind of interconnected standalones. I've never read anything by Abby Jimenez, but people love her books, so I just want to get into her writing this year. That is the case for a couple of these books. I just have authors that I want to get into, so I picked one of the ones I have, and here we are. She's a contemporary romance author, and this one, I think the woman is like a doctor. She's got a lot of family pressure and stuff to be perfect. Then she meets a carpenter, so they have totally different lives. One side is like her family wanting her to be this perfect doctor, and then the other side, I'm assuming he has maybe more of like a casual, regular life. So that's why it's called Part of Your World. I think she's deciding which world that she wants to belong to. I only have this one and then Yours Truly, and I think that this is a good place to start. Another contemporary romance, which is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. I've heard that her writing is a lot like Emily Henry, where it has a lot of just general fiction elements, but then obviously there's still a big romance plot. This one sounds really interesting because the guy is, I think, a famous singer. It doesn't say what he does, but he's famous, and I think he has a stalker, so he hires a bodyguard, and his mom is sick. He has to move back into her house, and he doesn't want her or anyone in his family to know that he has a stalker because he doesn't want them to worry. So his bodyguard has to pretend to be his girlfriend. It sounds really cute and fun. I've heard that her books are fast-paced, and one of my friends has been begging me to read this. This next one is my mom's favorite book, and she's been asking me to read it for a really long time. I've just been scared because it's really long, and that's The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. It's not huge, but it's long. It's almost 600 pages. I've heard that this is so sad, so good, but I'm scared. This is one of the few books on this TBR that I'm putting on here to try and pressure myself to read, because otherwise I don't know if I would actually read it. I mean, eventually I do think I would read it, but I'm just very scared. All I know is that it is a historical fiction, which my mom loves. It takes place during World War II in Paris. Like I said, I'm sure this is super sad, and I don't know. Ooh, it's just so long. Oh, and it's a movie. I actually bought this a long time ago at Costco. I found a box set of Kristen Hanna books, so I haven't read any of them yet, but I've heard that her writing is really good. They're just always very sad, I think. I don't think I've really read a sad book yet. I've kind of been avoiding those, so we'll see how this goes. Wow, okay, we are ending this list with another book that I'm terrified of, which is kind of embarrassing, but that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I don't remember how you're supposed to say it. I used to prefer one way, but now I don't remember which one I think sounds better. This is another book that is not huge. Actually, it looks pretty big in the hardcover, but now it's in paperback, and the paperback looks pretty small. So seeing that has made me a little bit less scared of this, but I've just heard that a lot of people felt like they were too stupid when they were reading this and they just couldn't understand it, and that is why I'm scared. This is Dark Academia. It takes place in Oxford, and it centers around the study of translation. The only other thing I know is that it is also supposed to be heartbreakingly sad, and I actually begged my mom to get this for me for Christmas last year. I told her if she got me only one book, it had to be this book, and here I am a year later, haven't read it. I think it's really just the fact that everybody says that you have to be smart to read this. I did get a lot of people commenting that I have to read this, that it's so good. And actually, my little brother is reading this right now because my mom got sent 2 copies on Amazon, so she just gave him one for Christmas, and I thought he would never read it. But he is reading it right now, and he's not really a reader. I don't know how far he is, but last time I talked to him, he was like 50 pages in, and he was liking it. And as his older sister, I feel like if he can read it, then I can read it. So I definitely know this is not one of the books on here that I'm very excited to read. I'm still much more nervous than I am looking forward to it, so I won't be picking it up anytime soon, but I better read it before the end of the year. Real quick, I'll go through my honorable mentions, which are the books that I don't own, but I would love to buy and read this year. The first is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, which is the first book in a fantasy duology. The second book just came out recently, and I've heard amazing reviews on both of them. It sounds like one of the most unique fantasy plots that I've heard in a long time, and I'm not really sure how to explain it. What I do know is that there is some sort of magic that revolves around playing cards, and our 2 main characters have to find all 12 playing cards in order to do whatever it is that they're trying to do. I think what they're trying to do is stop some sort of darkness, some sort of disease, and I think that she has that disease in her head. She definitely has something in her head. She has a name for it that I can't remember what it is. Honestly, what I said might be totally wrong, and I don't know a whole lot, but it sounds really interesting, and just the hype and the love that it's getting is really making me want to read it. Next is The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry by Gabrielle Zevin. Haley Pham is 100% responsible for making me want to read this book. She's talked about it in a lot of her recent videos, and it just sounds really cute and sweet. I think it's about this man who has a bookstore and it's not doing well, and honestly, I forgot what the rest of it is about. When she talked about it, it sounded really sweet, and it's pretty short, so I'm kind of treating these honorable mentions as if I could only buy a few books to read this year instead of reading from my physical TBR, these are the ones that I would pick. So they're just the books that I'm most interested to read. Next is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and I actually have this downloaded on my Kindle, so it kind of is part of my physical TBR. I'm very late to the game on this one, but everybody is getting really excited for the second one, Ruthless Vows, which comes out either this month or in January. It's just a fantasy romance, two people writing letters to each other, and it sounds good. I don't really have much more to say. Last one is kind of random, but it's Mile High by Liz Tomford. It is the first book in a sports romance series, which I'm not really a sports romance person, but I've never read one before. There's like 3 or 4 books in the series, and each one follows a different sport, I think. I've just been hearing a lot of people talking about it, and I have a few people in real life who love it and want me to read it. And I feel like it's just something a little bit different because I've never read a sports romance, but it's still a romance, so hopefully it's kind of short and I can get through it quickly. Okay, moving on to my most anticipated releases. I did just a little bit of research and I picked 4 books. So I might be missing a really good one by an author I love. If so, then I don't know, I'll figure out about it later. The first one is The Rule Book by Sarah Adams. I have no idea what that book is about, but I love Sarah Adams. As you can see behind me, I loved When in Rome and Practice Makes Perfect. The name actually makes it sound like it's a sports romance, but I can't even picture the cover. I don't know what it's about. I just know that I'm very excited to read a new book by her. Happily Never After by Lynn Painter. This is another one of her new adult romances. I think they're called new adult. It basically just means early 20s. I loved Mr. Wrong Number and The Love Wager, so I'm just excited to get a new adult romance from her. I think this one, the woman is about to get married and she finds out that her fiance has been cheating on her. So she wants to call off the wedding, but for some reason, I think because of her job or something, she doesn't actually want to call it off. She wants to hire a professional objector. So she hires this guy who comes to the wedding and objects, and I think he's probably gonna stand up and say, "You've been cheating on her, blah, blah, blah." And I believe the romance is gonna be between her and the objector. It sounds like her other 2 books, which are kind of silly but a lot of fun. Her and Sarah Adams actually don't write any spice in their books. I think that they are all closed door, so if you are not into spice, I would highly recommend them because I love their books. Next is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana, who is the same author that wrote The Very Secret Society of Regular Witches. She likes really long titles, I guess. The first one was just a really cute witchy rom-com that was lighthearted and fun. I read it in October and did not expect to love it as much as I did. So I have no clue what the second book is about plot-wise, but I think it's going to be along the same lines and I'm very excited for it. Last, we have Funny Feelings by Emily Henry. I have only read People We Meet on Vacation by her, and then I also have Book Lovers. I did really like People We Meet on Vacation, and I know it's just widely accepted as people's least favorite book from her, so I think that it can only go up from there. And hopefully I'll get to Book Lovers and maybe some of her other books before Funny Story comes out, but I just would like to read it with everybody else when it comes out. I don't know what it's about, I just know it's got like a funky purplish cover and I'm sure it's gonna be good. Okay, I've been talking for way too long. I had a lot more books to talk about than I thought. So those are all my priority reads for 2024. I'm very excited. I think I'm gonna have a great reading year. I'm looking forward to starting all of these books. Like I said, I want to prioritize series this year and then read the books that I've been putting off because I think they're gonna be good, because that is stupid. Let me know what your priority TBR is for 2024. I would love to know. I know that I talked to a lot of people in the comments of my last video about these books that are on my priority TBR. So if y'all have already read a lot of these, then I would love to know what you plan on reading next year. That's it. I'm gonna stop talking. I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!